I'm Christ Carbine and welcome back to another gaming review.
Today we're having a look at Warhammer 40k Space Marine. This is the first game and I did the terrible thing of playing the second game first, which didn't necessarily affect me in any or very bad ways, but I will say that the second game is much better, but it's obviously because it's much newer and stuff like that. But yeah, for the sake of this video, I am going to try my best to refrain myself from making any comparisons to the second game, since obviously this game was released all the way back in 2011. It's more than a decade old, so obviously it's going to have some of its flaws, and that brings me to the fact that I wanted to title this video basically something like Big Armor, Bigger Flaws, something like that. I think would have been pretty funny. I'll see what I end up doing in the title or with the title eventually. But yeah, I'm gonna try to refrain from referencing Space Marine 2. If I do though, I do apologize, but yes, that is basically most of my knowledge when it comes to Space Marine and Warhammer 40k is practically just the second game. I'm still getting into the lore and everything, so I'm not gonna know everything. I'm no expert at this. This is purely talking about the game and what I thought about the game in the current year 2024. Do I recommend it? Don't I recommend it? Stay tuned. During the end of the video, I will give you a rating and whether I recommend it or not. But I'm going to start off by talking about the game itself. Visually, it looks pretty good. I mean, it still holds up in the current day and age. Much similar to Space Marine 2, there are a lot of times when this game will be dark as hell. Like, it'll be difficult to see what you run into, or it'll be difficult to spot an orc or something because this game is extremely dark, but that's not necessarily the game's fault. That is like practically what they went for with this, especially the second one as well. That is a bit of the universe, you know, type of a thing that they kind of had to do, I guess, because this is a very dark game. It's very gritty, it's very grim. And I mean, like I said, that's just a part of the 40k universe, so I don't blame them for that. That's actually pretty cool. Visually though, like the graphics are good. Like the facial expressions and animations and everything like that. There's actually a ton of in-game cutscenes in this game, which is a massive thing that it has going for it. Like, props to Space Marine 1 for having all of these in-game cutscenes, because the second game didn't have any in-game cutscenes, at least not from what I recall. I mean, yes, the second game had a lot going on at all times in the background, on the battlefield and everything like that. There's always ships flying around, there's thousands and thousands of Tyranid alien Xeno scum chasing you down. But yes, aside from that, there wasn't any in-game cutscenes. So the cutscenes in the second game was videos, you know, it was like videos that they made and they played for you. The cutscenes in Space Marine 1 is actual like cutscenes, like in-game cutscenes, dude. Like it's in everything actually happens in-game. Like you can't skip it. You can't skip it because it's actually happening in-game. And that's something that I really respect about most of the older games, is the fact that they had to go through the animation progress and, you know, the code and everything to make in-game cutscenes, which is why it means so much to me. Even though sometimes it kind of sucks that you can't skip it, especially if you constantly die at the same enemy and then you've constantly got to rewatch the same scene. But even then, it's still fine. I do appreciate them for actually making in-game cutscenes. Another thing that I want to talk about, something that is very good about the first Space Marine game, is the fact that there is just so much weapons in this game. Like, even up until the last chapter of the game, there's like 5 chapters I believe, and up until the last chapter you're still constantly getting new guns or upgrades for your guns. And that is just amazing, because some of the weapons in this game are amazing. I mean, you have your average bolter. There is a bolter rifle that you get later on that is like much stronger with a bigger magazine. You've got like this one Halo-ass rifle which beams the enemies. It's so much fun. All of the weapons are good, except for this one weapon that was kind of like a grenade launcher thingy. It shot this blue thingy, which basically didn't do anything. I remember trying to figure out how to use that weapon, but I just never had any use for it. Maybe I'm an idiot, but yeah, that was a horrible weapon. Worst weapon in the game. Aside from that, all of the other weapons, they were fun, they were playable. I really do wish that a lot of them had more ammo, but that might be on me because I did play the game on the hardest difficulty. I went into this raw dogging it on the hardest difficulty, and I definitely felt the consequences of it because this game is extremely hard, okay? Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and say comparing the second game's difficulty to the first game's difficulty is like comparing My Little Pony to Elden Ring. Okay, it's just the comparison. You just can't compare the two, to be honest, because in the second game, you're practically this one-man army. You're a god among men, and you're just constantly slaying. You are just constantly knee-deep in blood and xenoguts. But in the first game, though, oh my god, I mean, I didn't play it on the normal difficulty or easy or anything like that, but on the hardest difficulty, wow, this is extremely difficult, okay? It felt worse than Dark Souls, to be honest. And it's not necessarily the difficulty, it's just, obviously, it's very hard. They're not necessarily overpowering you with numbers or anything like that. It's just a good, well-built game that is a bit of a challenge, and that's something that I really do enjoy, because nowadays a game is either a Souls-like or it's just practically unbeatable, or it's just so easy that you run through it in 2 hours, and nobody wants that. I used to spend most of my childhood playing video games on easy, and honestly, now that I'm a bit older, I can safely say that I highly regret this, because playing a game on the hardest difficulty or a harder difficulty is just so much more fun and immersive. There's a lot of times where you actually have to use your noggin and try to find a way around a boss or an enemy or something like that. You've really got to play smart, you've got to think, and that is something that I really do appreciate. So I believe personally from now on in the future, I will probably be playing most games on harder difficulties. But yeah, playing this game on the hardest difficulty was a little bit of a chore, but it's not necessarily, like I said, the difficulty. You've got to get, like, there's a lot of times where you run out of ammo. The close hand-to-hand combat is a bit difficult, and unlike the second game, sorry for the comparison, but unlike the second game, there is no iframes on dodging or on performing an execution move, because during the second game, at least from what I recall, if you dodge, then you're pretty much okay, you're safe-ish. And then when you perform an execution, you're just immortal. You're just standing there taking the hits and you're just laughing it off. Okay, it's barely brushing you. Now, the first game, unfortunately, when you perform a takedown, an execution move, you are completely vulnerable. You have to do this to gain HP most of the time, unless you use your ability. But yes, doing this leaves you completely open, and there will definitely be an orc or a chaos agent or something up in your ass while you do that. So you've got to really be careful about when you choose to execute your enemies. And as you can see here at this part of the gameplay, my HP is lower than my self-esteem, and the only way that you can get it up is by performing takedowns or by using your power, your chaos ability, or whatever it's called. I think it was called a chaos meter. I can't even recall, to be honest. But yes, that was pretty fun. Like when you use this ability, you become much more powerful. You can go into slow motion when you scope with a weapon, which makes it a bit easier and just more badass to get kills and stuff like that. But yeah, aside from the difficulty, I think that the difficulty was pretty much fine. I think that what made it so hard for me wasn't necessarily difficult, but just the fact that the game is a bit dated. A lot of the stuff are a bit dated. Like I said, this game is almost more than a decade old, so obviously it's not going to be up to date with today's standards and modern technology and everything like that, which is also a very good thing. One minor thing that I did want to mention, though, is that I got stuck a lot of the times in the game. Not necessarily like stuck, I don't know where to go or anything like that, just like physically stuck on obstacles and stuff. I would be running and then my dude would just come to a halt because of a little piece of debris or something that I barely even noticed, or that I thought he would be able to run over, but then it just completely brings me to a halt. But aside from that, the gunplay is really fun. You get to use the jump pack more, which, like in the second game, you can only use the jump pack once in the campaign. campaign, whereas here you get it in multiple missions. There's the orcs, which are vicious and powerful, a great enemy though, and the same thing goes for the Chaos Marines during the second half of the game, which are much more powerful than the orcs. But yeah, either of those are good. I enjoy slaying them. I do prefer slaying Tyranids though. I think they're much more fun and easier in my honest opinion. But yes, this game was still an absolute blast. I think that it holds up pretty decent in the year 2024, and if you can get it on Steam, maybe on sale, I definitely recommend checking it out. I didn't check out any of the multiplayer modes unfortunately, but the single player campaign was great, and overall I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 7.5 out of 10. Definitely cop it on sale. If you can afford it, get it at full price. Definitely support the developers, and as they say,
For the Emperor! Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you again in the next video. Peace out, y'all.